Hey guys, Mel and Dave Dupree from Dupree Properties. Today we want to speak with you a bit more in detail about what to expect when you're searching for a property and what the steps you should be taking.
Yeah, once you find a spot, a good rental income property, this is a little bit more in depth as to what you should be looking for. So we kind of scratched the surface in the other one. When you're looking for a cash cow in that or cash flowing property, yeah.
So we talked about rents earlier in our previous video. So rents, you want to look at it, is it cash flowing? Is there potential to increase the rents, or are they maxed out? But if they are maxed out, it's okay if the cash flow is there. So if you're only making $300 and you know that those rents are pretty much maxed out, there's no way we'd even consider that building. If it's cash flowing at $1,000 and the rents are cashed out, say for a duplex, then yeah, we consider that one. So look at the entire picture. How much are you buying for the property? How many units? So how much of your time will be in it, and how much are you cash flowing?
Yeah, rents are important, guys, because it can dictate. So if you did your due diligence and the building's cash flowing and the rents are still on the low side, those ones are pretty neat buildings because you can increase the rents over time, increase your cash flow.
And you'll hear a lot about cap rates, especially, or you might hear from your realtor or other investors. And it's one thing to consider, but it's only, for us, it's only one part of the formula. So
yeah.
Don't make your decision just on the cap rate, as it doesn't necessarily take everything into consideration, including your mortgage. So it can vary substantially. So do your own numbers. Don't trust anyone. Do it yourself. Do your own due diligence with the rental income.
And just talking on that cap rate, guys, is like Mel said, cap rate. A lot of people, some people, they calculate it differently. Some people don't even include the maintenance. Some people don't include management. The other thing too with cap rate is it's the gross rental income and the total expenses, not including your debt, your mortgage. So I can go get a mortgage at, X percent, and you can go get a mortgage at X percent, and that building is going to vary very differently how it cash flows every month depending on that debt. So when we hear cap rate, yes, it's there, it's kind of in the back of our mind, but until I do my numbers with my financing and all that, it's just another tidbit of info.
Perfect. The next topic,
yeah.
This one was I still remember in college, was the #1 marketing thing to consider. Class Marketing 101 was location, 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 and it's absolutely true. So where's the building located? And a few things you need to consider is it close to the downtown area? Do you want it to be close to the downtown area? How's your downtown in your city? Is it close to a college or university? Is there lots of students, a lot of student housing? If you are purchasing student housing, then that's great because people know to go in that area. For us, we personally don't invest in student housing. It's more
personal preference, though.
Personal preference. We're into multifamily residences, so we'll typically stay away from that area. And then have a look at the neighbors. What is that area like? Is it a nice neighborhood? Is it a bad neighborhood? Is there potential to improve upon it? If your building is one of the worst one on the street, then there could be potential that you can make it look really nice and spice it up and get better rents down the road. But as I mentioned earlier, you still have to make sure that it's cash flowing now as well, though.
That's right. So Mel was saying, and to be honest, there is one building that we own that when we bought it, it's one of the ugliest buildings on the street. So we sucked up our pride. It's in an okay part of town. We knew going in that it was going to need a reno inside and out, and we're doing it slowly but surely, and eventually it's going to be the nicest house on the street. So the location was good, above, the rents, everything was good. Now the other thing with the location is there's a location for everyone. So you can buy in the downtown, you're going to have a different clientele. You can buy close to the school, you're going to have a different clientele. There's nothing wrong with any of the types of clienteles, and that'll kind of go into our next subject on tenants. Just know that, if you're buying closer to downtown, you're going to have different issues. If you're buying in a more expensive part of the city, there's going to be different priorities. So there's no wrong location, as long as you know what comes with every location. It sounds like common sense, guys, But initially we were just buying places, you know, in different locations, not thinking of all these, and then we had to learn, oh, this one's, okay, this one comes with a different set of pros and cons than the other one did. So just something to think about. And like I was saying, so the next subject is tenants. Tenants is very important. So when you go through a building after you've done all your research, when you walk through, sometimes tenants don't want you to buy the building because they're scared of change and that. So sometimes they'll say stuff to spook you. But sometimes it's true. Like, most of the time it's true. I'm not saying anything bad. We love all our tenants. So, but yeah, tenants is very important because we have looked at buildings where there's been tenants. I can think of 2 this year. One was a 5-plex and one was like a 10 or overplex. And what is your time worth, right? So if you go in and a couple of bad tenants here and there are okay, but when you have a lot of bad apples, it's tough because you know you're gonna buy that building, and do you really want to burn yourself out on one building? So that's something that's huge. And also, if there's that type of tenant in that building, when you're trying to rent it again to other people, it's just gonna cause an issue. So it's something to look at initially. If there's, you know, one bad apple, we've dealt with that. A couple bad apples, yeah. But when 3/4 of the building are an issue, what's your time worth, right? Not like it's
again, and it's again your own preference.
Yeah.
But for us, it was we did spend quite a bit of time talking about it and the pros and the cons because it did make substantial money. But again, for us, we're in acquisition mode. We just did not want to spend that much time on taking care of the tenants, and it was a fairly rough crowd.
Yeah.
So we did end up, for now anyhow, not going ahead with the investment.
And the other thing too you have to think about tenants is we're big enough now that we have a maintenance crew, but even if you're hiring a plumber here and there, these people have to go into these units. If you have a bad apple and every time the electrician goes in, or the plumber or the carpenter or the maintenance guy, they're yelling, like people aren't going to want to work for you anymore or go in these units. So it's bigger picture. When you get some bad tenants, you know, if you've picked them yourself, that's kind of your problem. But when you buy a building, do you want to buy into that headache? Because it's not just you. Everyone that goes in on your team after is going to say, thanks a lot for sending me there, right? So just bigger picture stuff, guys, that we've learned, unfortunately.
And we will be doing another YouTube videos on tenants, and we have tons of tips for you because there's tons of myths that we've learned. We've heard all the stories in the world, but we honestly, throughout the years, with all the hundreds of tenants that we've had, only had a full hand of tenants maybe that we had issues with. So, but that's because we have systems and we were able to learn how to deal with them and how to pick them and so on. So we'll talk about that.
Yeah, that's another video. That's a whole other video, yeah. So cash flow, so I know we talked about it, but we want to go more in depth on your cash flow. So when you're doing the analysis, and we'll do a specific video I think as well down the road, going through our actual cash flow line by line, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, what percentages. But this is just something that we want to go over your general cash flow and just kind of talk about, you know, some of the general stuff that you might have forgotten. So cash flow is so important. Oh, our dog's in the video, she might bark. She sees someone outside. Come on, yes, it's okay. So cash flow, income. So when we say income, everyone thinks, hey, Dave, the rents. Look at all income. So many people walk through a property and they just see what the current owner is using it as. So, Mel, if you want to touch on that, like there's so many other things.
There's so many ways. So go in there and don't ever look at what the current landlord is doing. Look at what the current landlord is not doing. So where's the potential? Is there potential in the building? Is there a garage that is just not being utilized that you can maybe rent somebody and they can store their boat?
Yeah.
There's lots of different options for you to do that. What are other
parking spots? People have parking spots. You can rent the parking spots to each unit. You can also rent extra parking spots. Or if you have a lot of parking and you're close to a business, I know some landlords that do that. Even some landlords will rent space to each other. Different things. Like if you have a special type of equipment. Like I know it sounds silly, guys, but when you can show the bank that you've increased the value of the property by you know, renting out the driveway, renting out the shed, renting out the extra you know, space on the lot for something else, the bank will take that income to a certain extent and then when you go to refi or sell or whatever, income is income, right? So they kind of look at it. So yeah, look at all income, because it's a good way to boost the value.
And 2 more tips on things that we've done. One is that we looked at a property and it had a humongous living room, which was almost too big. So we ended up dividing it, adding an extra wall and closet, and made it a 2-bedroom instead of 1 bedroom. So now the rent, instead of being a certain amount, we were able to up the rent by an extra $300 or so. So that was an easy way to increase revenue. Again, it's looking at what is the landlord not currently doing. Lighting, is there high efficiency bulbs or not? Can you save money if you do that once you move in? We've done that in many of our properties. It's a big expense at first, but then long term you're able to save as well.
Yeah. So just to kind of hop into what Mel was saying, so yeah, the expenses and efficiency. So expenses, guys, like we said earlier, make sure you look at them. So make sure the expenses make sense. So if, like, we had a building, what was it? Anyway, I won't say, anyway, we had a building, and the hydro,
don't say the name of it.
the hydro per month was astronomical, and it was almost a deal breaker. And then once we started doing some research, we found out that, and nothing against the previous owner, we learned from that mistake. We learned the previous owner was signed up to some sort of, they knock on your door and they sign you up to a hydro contract promising the world, and then next thing you know, your rates are... So anyway, it was almost a deal breaker. We did our homework. We realized that once it came into our name, the bills would go down. And then we found efficiencies as well. High efficiency light bulbs, change out some sets, different high efficiency boilers, the high efficiency hot water tank, all that stuff, guys, adds up in the end. I know it sounds silly, but it adds up, because again, if you can increase your income, lower your expenses, when you go to sell or refinance anything, that spread is what's going to give you your higher. So anyway, long story short, that hydro now, when I do my budgeting and billing, and Mel does her budget and billing, it's almost half. Like, it's, so what's something that was going to be a deal breaker because it was eating into the cash flow. And again, the building still cash flowed from day one, otherwise we wouldn't have purchased it, but we wanted to cash flow higher for the amount of units it had, and that hydro was just eating away. So we did our homework, made sense, and now the hydro's half, and that's more income per month. So that kind of stuff, guys, you wouldn't find out. We would have we would have turned down that cash cow, and that building is a good performing building, and there's still tenants that can move out and the rent will go up even more. So, but again, if we hadn't done our homework, like everyone should, everyone says they do, but yeah.
That's great. Maintenance. You may be somebody who's very handy and know how to fix things, which is great because you can save, of course, some money, which is one side of the story. However, if your goal is to have 10, 20, 50, 100 units, it's going to come to a point where you will have to delegate that responsibility. So again, if you're only looking at 2, 3 rentals, just want a bit of extra income, then that's great. Otherwise, you do need to consider how much is that going to cost you. And again, it's still your time either way. It's still going to be your time, even if you're doing it yourself.
Yeah, and just to touch on 2 things that Mel said. When you do, well, I'm not a tax accountant or anything like that, but I do like to look into the tax, and my accountants have always told me, when you do things yourself, yes, you can claim how much it cost you at one of the stores to buy the supplies, but you cannot write off your time. So I find that a double whammy, because A, I'm losing my time, B, I can't write it off. I can actually almost see there's almost a third, and I'm not out there doing something that makes me money. So I find that that's kind of the way we look at it. So just touch on what Mel was saying. Yeah, you can't write off your time when it comes to income tax, in Canada anyway, as far as I know. You can ask your accountant. And just a growing thing, yes, I found doing all the stuff ourselves when we had 2, 3, 4, probably 5 or 6 was the tipping point. Like when I was
almost
in there,
our quitting point.
Almost our quitting point. So when I was in there changing toilets, YouTubing how to change toilets and then doing it, just things like that, that's when it was frustrating. And it almost kept us small and down. And then once we decided, you know what, if we're going to continue growing, you need to spend the money at some point on the maintenance. So as soon as we started doing that, we started making more money in a very weird way.
And as part of that, although it's not maintenance, but even the cleanup. So that, I mean, at first we've done it all. We'd come in and dog poo left in their apartment. It was just we've seen it all. And again, the majority of our tenants are awesome by all means. But once in a while you do get a bad tenant, and you will, it's gonna happen.
You will.
You're gonna get a mess, and cleaning it's not fun. And for us, after a while, it was like, oh, I can't handle it anymore. Well, what's the solution? I wanna keep growing, so hire somebody who wants to do that. So we have an awesome team who does the garbage pickup when, you know, the furniture and mattresses are left behind. We have a cleaning crew, again, who are awesome, reliable.
Yeah.
So we can focus on doing what we love, and continue to give the good services to our tenants, so they can stay with us, but that we can keep growing it.
Bigger picture stuff. So you're not gonna hire a whole team on your first rental. You know, you're gonna have to get your hands dirty. Well, it depends. It's your choice, but don't think that from day one you gotta hire a whole team. You can if you want, but you don't have to. It's bigger picture stuff. Now the other thing, maintenance, when you're calculating that for your cash flow analysis, that's where Mel was saying it can be as much as you want or little. We choose to fix everything all the time. We don't want to mess around. We don't Mickey Mouse it. We don't want to be slumlords. So our maintenance is high enough because we fix things. Now, year by year, usually the first year we buy a building, the maintenance is not through the roof, but it's very high. And sometimes the first year after we buy it, you know, income tax is thinking, you know, why is it so high? And the banks are asking, why is it so high? And it's, well, because we bought the building, we wanted to fix it. If it wasn't fire retrofit and we knew that initially, and that was okay with us and part of the deal making, sometimes that does happen if we know that it's going to cost, you know, a certain amount of money. You have to do that. If you know in the deal that the furnace is done and you're going to have to buy a furnace, you have to do that. So it's all stuff that we saw coming, but the first year might be a $20,000 a year, $30,000 a year. But then after that, once the, you know, everything's flowing smoothly, it's going to be $2,000 a year, $5,000 a year. So just keep that in mind. The first year might be a little scary with expenses, but once things are up to snuff, you know, you'll flow a bit better. So that's kind of a tough one to gauge, but that'll be up to you.
And that's when, again, it's deciding for yourself what kind of building do you want. Do you want a building that, you know, that, for example, that we've been maintaining, that everything's done, it's basically turnkey, you know, high rent, or do you want a building where you have to more or less start from scratch and change everything and put the money into it? So there's advantages of both sides, just depends what's right for you. So you do have to take the time to ask yourself which direction you want to go, and sometimes we do a bit of both for us.
Yeah.
Both can be profitable.
So management, so property management. So you can choose to do your own, which we do our own as of right now. I'm sure it'll change, you know, once we acquire a bit more. But that's something you should kind of always have in the back of your mind. Even if you're going to do it yourself, you know, a property manager sometimes can be 5%, 7%, sometimes 10%, depending on the level that you're going to receive. They keep last month's rent. They charge for maintenance. Obviously, they charge for all that stuff. And so that's something, guys. Even if you're going to do it yourself, I say give yourself that safety net of putting in that percentage. Because if a year down the road you've decided, you know what, I'm sick and tired of doing it, and I want to keep buying rentals, but I don't want to have that day-to-day, you know, doing stuff. Well, at least you built that into your cash flow, because you don't want to have a building go negative on you because you hired a property manager. But that's personal choice again. So those numbers will fluctuate. Just know that the bank is going to include those numbers no matter what, whether you have them or not. The underwriter, we always put a 0 property management. We tell them we're going to manage it, and what we do in our mind calculation, I'll put a number, but I tell them I'm going to be managing this building, and they still put 5 or 10% because they have to. So just know the bank is going to do that whether you do it or not.
Yeah, so you'll have to keep that in your calculations, like either way. And either way, it's nice to have, so that way, if you do decide, as we're certainly planning to in the near future pass that off, so we can strictly be doing the investing part, we'll be able to do so because we've always calculated, and all of our properties are cash flowing substantially enough, and that even if we have that extra cost, they're still profiting and still gonna cash flow. Yeah.
So the last thing we want to touch on, guys, is something, the unforeseens. And I shouldn't even say unforeseen. It's just things that you don't really think about. And it sounds kind of common sense. So if you're here, well, in Canada where we are, snow removal, it's a big cost. Like if you're not expecting it and you don't budget for that, and then you get a quote back saying it's going to be, you know, $1,200, $2,000, $3,000. It's a big cost. And again, if you're in, like us here in Ontario, Canada, it's a part of life. So I know it sounds obvious, but put it in there and call around, get some quotes, even if it's summertime, you know, you might not get the guys to get some quotes, but ask other landlords, what do you pay, and anyway, but keep that in there because you're gonna need it. The other thing too is pest control. I know it sounds, you know, everyone has mice and, you know, it is what it is, but sometimes you'll have that, like just this year we redid a roof, there's a raccoon in the attic, we need pest control. We've had vacant building got torn down beside us, and there's been, since that building got torn down, there's been lots of pest issues because, you know, they're kind of all over the place now. So this year that building has had particularly higher pest costs. But you would never throw that into your normal calculation. So it's kind of like that buffer, what if
Bed bugs as well, right? I mean,
Bed
bed
bugs
bugs doesn't matter if you have a super clean building. I don't know how much you know about bed bugs, but you can bring them home with you from seeing a show at the theater, right? So,
Yeah, it's just,
so they could just show up unexpectedly in one of your apartments, and you have to deal with that as a landlord. You just have to
you just have to deal with it. If someone says they haven't had bed bugs, anyway, it's a part of life as being a landlord, unfortunately, but just deal with it. Now the last thing, to deal with those unexpected costs is, and again, no one budgets for it, is technicians. Your furnace goes down, you need a technician to come look at it, you need a gas guy. The plugs won't work, or the breakers keep tripping, you need an electrician. That's not part of those general calculations. Those are those one-offs, guys, where you have to have that buffer. If you don't cash flow from day one, you know, you don't have that cash to go forward. Another thing too is people always forget about the furnaces. You know, if you have to buy a furnace, that's big bucks. If you have to buy, if you had an AC for your building, that's big bucks. So that kind of stuff. And now you'll get your home inspection, they'll tell you the age of the furnace and the quality. But just think bigger picture, you know, snow removal, pest control, different technicians. Just think anything that could happen to the building, you know, you wanna have an idea. Just, it's better to be prepared, right? And it's stuff that when we first started buying, no one told us about it, and you know, we had to pay it, so.
So how do you find these perfect buildings with all the, you know, location and everything else we talked about that are still cash flowing? Is take your time, look at lots of buildings, crunch
Yes.
a lot of numbers. You know, we often talk about, oh my gosh, how many properties do we crunch number for before buying one of them? And it's, I mean, probably about 100, right? Like
Yeah.
we crunch so many numbers. We are always looking at numbers. And that's only part of the puzzle. But you can't just look at the first deal, but when you do find one, that jump on it, because they typically go quickly. Because if people like us, if we see one, we're gonna aggressively jump on it before anybody else gets a chance to. So do your homework, look at a lot of building. When you've looked at a lot of buildings, you'll know it too. You'll be like,
Yes.
oh my gosh, you know, this one's cash flowing, $1,200 for a duplex, and it's perfect location, it's turnkey, it's a no-brainer, right?
And to have what Mel's saying, so the two sides of the coin there, do not be afraid to walk away from a deal.
Mm-hmm.
If you like it and all that, but there's something up with it, we've walked away from so many deals that, you know, seemed to make sense, and then when you dug in, I was like, no, done. So don't be afraid to walk away. That's not giving up, that's not quitting, that's just being smart about it. But don't overanalyze too, don't you know, perfection is paralysis, so don't do that either, it's not what I'm saying. Now the other side of that coin, like Mel was saying, once you find these properties, like we do, everyone thinks we're very like, oh my god, you're always putting in offers, you're always
You
aggressively
just buy
buying.
everything. No,
It's like,
you
no,
don't.
we go through so many deals, we turn down lots, we walk away from the lot, but as soon as we see one that meets all our check marks, we want that building under contract yesterday.
And that's why you know, if you've been following us or subscribed to our channel and you've been hearing our previous video, that's why we're actively looking for private lenders and everything else. So that way when we do find these awesome buildings, we are ready, we can jump on it. Because if we don't jump on it, there's another person in another city or somewhere else who's doing the same thing that we're doing, and they're going to jump on this before us.
That's right. And if we miss out on that one, we'll find another one, we'll crunch the numbers on a bunch more, and we'll find the next one, and hopefully we're ready for it that time.
And that's the thing, we never just have one deal and go, right?
No.
We always have a handful, and
It's fun.
okay, yeah, so
It's very fun.
don't just focus on one necessarily. If you're working on one, I'll put everything on hold, just keep plugging away at it.
Awesome, guys. So again, please, like Mel was saying, please comment in the last video, please comment below. Tell us what you liked, what you didn't like, what you want to see. we just want to keep getting better at these videos for you guys. Again, our whole motto is I wish someone would have showed me this when I was starting. So that's kind of our mindset. We're trying to give you this info that we wish we had. So constructive criticism, hey, we can take it. Just don't be too harsh. But yeah.
As a landlord, you have to take criticism. So.
But yeah, tell us what we're missing. Tell us what you want. Tell us what you don't want. We just want to get better. So
and subscribe to that red button on our page. Subscribe to our YouTube page as well, and we'll have lots more educational videos to come. And which is also going to be part of our book, which will be released within the next couple of months. So we'll keep you posted on that as well.
Awesome.
Awesome. Great. Thanks, everyone.
Bye for now.
Okay. Bye.